Good evening. I'm going to call to order the April 16th meeting of the Joint Town Council and Parking Authority. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Good evening and thank you. Councilmember Stephen Leonardis.
Here.
Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Krasinski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Barbara Spector.
Here.
Mayor Steve Rice.
Here. As is our custom and tradition, we're going to have a member of our youth community lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Our honoree tonight is Chandler Cook, who is a second grader at Hillbrook School. That's okay, you can wave. That's good. Chandler's favorite subjects are math, science, music, and library. He has volunteered at the animal shelter in the first grade. He plays baseball and soccer and likes to free swim. Kind of the all-American boy, aren't you? He likes Lego building, video games, reading and writing books. He plays the guitar and has a purple belt in Taekwondo. Please welcome Chandler Cook. Chandler, come on up. Would you all please stand for the pledge? Up here, Chandler. Stand right here. Hold that. Left hand. Put that in your
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's give Chandler a hand. Back this way. Thank you very much, and that's for you. Some more hands going. Look, take this with you. There you go. One more hand. Look. One more hand for Chandler. Okay, I'm going to move down below. We have some proclamations to give tonight. And first, I'd like to ask Rob Rennie, our Parks Chair, and Rob Molden, our Town Arborist, to come up and join me. Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks. I'm right over here. I'll let you guys. And for those of you that know, we are a Tree City USA for the last 32 consecutive years. And this is a proclamation for Arbor Day. Whereas the town of Los Gatos recognizes National Arbor Day Friday, April 27th, 2012, and whereas the National Arbor Day Foundation, in cooperation with the National Association of State Foresters and the USDA Forest Service, established community forestry standards, and whereas the town of Los Gatos has, for its 32nd consecutive year, been recognized as a Tree City USA for its commitment to an effective ongoing community forestry program. And whereas the town of Los Gatos established and observes the 4 National Arbor Day Foundation standards, a tree board or department, a tree care ordinance, a comprehensive community forestry program, and an Arbor Day observance. And whereas, in recognition of the status as a Tree City USA, the town of Los Gatos will plant trees in Live Oak Manor Park on the 27th day of April at 10 a.m. to celebrate National Arbor Day. Now, therefore, it be it resolved, I, Steve Rice, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the town of Los Gatos, do deem it appropriate and do hereby proclaim Friday, April the 27th, 2012, to be the National Arbor Day within the town of Los Gatos, and call upon all citizens to renew its commitment to urban forestry efforts. Gentlemen, congratulations. Thank you. You want to say a few words?
All right. Well, so Arbor Day is a very important proclamation, but I think it's not where Los Gatos stops. We appreciate trees all the time. It's an important part of the character of our town. When you walk down Santa Cruz Boulevard, you walk down Main Street, and you look up at the hills, what do you see? Trees everywhere. It's really an important part of the character of Los Gatos. So the proclamation is just another way of showing how important it is to Los Gatos, and 32 years of Tree City USA also is another indicator of that.
As part of the Arbor Day Foundation statement, part of their public image statement says, being a Tree City USA presents the kind of image most citizens want to have for the place they live and work. Being a Tree City USA tells visitors that here's a community that cares about the environment. It also indicates that the quality of life just might be a little bit better here than it is anywhere else. I think I agree with that statement, and that describes Los Gatos. I urge all of you to come out. We're planting 35 trees at Live Oak Manor the 27th, and you're welcome to come out. It's going to be a good time. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a couple of recognitions for downtown businesses. And I'd like to ask Economic Vitality Manager Jessica Van Bork to come up here with me. And the first commendation is going to go to Federal Realty Investment Trust, Rachel Richards. Would you come forward and join us, please? And I'm not going to ask anybody to sing, but it's Rachel's birthday. That's a lovely shade of crimson. So, Rachel, thank you very much. Let me read your commendation. Whereas each April, the town of Los Gatos celebrates Keep Los Gatos Beautiful Month with a series of events sponsored by the town and local services organizations. The events focus on protecting, restoring, and preserving the local environment and celebrating individual businesses that exemplify those efforts. And whereas the town has identified downtown business and property owners that embody the spirit of Keep Los Gatos Beautiful Month because of their efforts to maintain their storefronts and properties beyond their front door throughout the entire year. And whereas Federal Realty Investment Trust, who acquired Old Town Center in 1997 and maintains a total of 96,000 square feet and 218 parking spaces, contributed to the character and aesthetic quality of downtown beyond expectations. And whereas Federal Realty Investment Trust utilizes a full-time staff of 4 who provide territorial services and maintain everything from the landscaping to the common area, including the sidewalk and parking lot cleaning and awning maintenance. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby commend and congratulate Federal Realty Investment Trust for its efforts to maintain and beautify the downtown community over the past 15 years in the spirit of Keep Los Gatos Beautiful Month. Rachel, congratulations. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you very much. We're very excited to be recognized by the town, and we hope to continue this great relationship that we've established. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and happy birthday. Don't see it. Is Ignacio here? No? All right. One last one then for now is the Los Gatos United Methodist Church Lighting for Literacy Youth Group. Would Jennifer Murdoch from the United Methodist Church come forward, and all the youth that participated in the project? And Doug McNeil, I think, coordinated this for the Morning Rotary Club. Just come right back behind us. That's great. So let me read you our commendation. Whereas Lighting for Literacy is a community-based collaboration between the Los Gatos United Methodist Church and the Los Gatos Morning Rotary to build compact, low-cost, renewable lighting delivery systems to off-grid homes in Colonet, Mexico, and whereas this pilot project was principally designed to empower youth through science, sustainability, and service above self for Earth Day, and whereas the Los Gatos community, junior high and high school youth contributed a total of 60-plus hours of volunteer time in workshops receiving a unique renewable technology education that will benefit youth around the world. Also, several Los Gatos youth will contribute an additional 120-plus hours during their spring break, traveling abroad to install the first of these new systems. And whereas, because of these youth and their individual and collective efforts, the village of Colonet, Mexico will have lighting for remote homes installed by the United Methodist Church Volunteers and Missions Program. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render with special appreciation a commendation to our local Los Gatos youth group who have generously volunteered their time to help those in need who have truly demonstrated the testament of service above self. Dated April 16, 2012, signed by your town council. Congratulations.
Don't clergy have a reputation of talking too much? I will try to be brief, but not as brief as the woman who came before. I really want to thank the Town Council for recognizing this service project. I think it's really, really important, and we hope it's just the beginning of the solar kits that we build and install. I want to especially thank Jess Salem. He's on the end there. Jess is an engineer and member of our congregation who masterminded this project, designed it, and made it work, and also taught all of the youth the science behind it and how to construct them. So I'm incredibly grateful for his vision. And Doug McNeil, who's back there, I don't know why he wouldn't come up with us, who is also part of our church community and a member of the Morning Rotary. And without his incredible organizational skills and drive, this project would never have actually been implemented. So I'm very, very grateful for that work. And most especially the youth. And the parents that help support them too. I think they learned a lot about science and sustainability. I think they exceeded their own expectations of what they could do. And I learned a lot about service. And the commendation says that we will install them, but in fact we did. So last week we sent our mission team down to Colonet, Mexico, and we have installed the first solar kits. And there are families in Mexico who have never had lighting in their homes who have them now. And it was the youth, especially these two right here, who installed the first kits. So we are thrilled with how it has come about and what the future of this project could be. So thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. While I move back up to the dais, we'll have the closed session report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. There was no closed session this evening, and there's nothing to report out.
Perfect timing. Okay, if you wish to speak on an item on tonight's agenda, in the front of the row right in front of you will be little buff cards, kind of tan-colored cards. If you would fill those out before you come up, that would be helpful. You can turn them in to the clerk on my left, your right, and then we'll hear you when that item comes forward. Council and Manager matters. I just have one council matter. Anything? Seeing none, my only council matter is to remind everybody that the next Meet the Mayor session will be a week from Saturday, so that's the 28th, if I'm getting that right, the 28th, from 2 to 4 in the library conference room. So anybody that wants to meet with me on any topic, please feel free to stop by. I'm there from 2 to 4. Manager matters.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public, several quick calendaring items. First, we are still accepting sign-ups for the West Valley Emergency Preparedness CERT course that starts next week on April 26th. Second, we're hosting our first ever Green Building Symposium on April 30th in the Library Teen Center from 9 to 11. So it's a chance for adults to get to use this space and make their businesses green. Third, we are continuing to accept proposals from community groups for possibilities to reuse the old library space. Those are due on May 1st. Next to last, Youth Commission applications are due May 9th, just 2 days after your next meeting. And then finally, Wine Walk tickets are on sale through the Chamber of Commerce. This is a town chamber-sponsored event, with the first one being held of the summer on May 19th. And that sells out, and so just encouraging the public to get their tickets now. Tonight's Did You Know, in keeping with the theme of our presentations, is about Keep Los Gatos Beautiful, and we have Parks and Facilities Superintendent Christy Walter to present tonight's Did You Know.
Thank you. Did you know that April is Keep Los Gatos Beautiful month? Each April, we celebrate the beauty and sustainability of Los Gatos with a variety of town and community-sponsored events. Examples of this year's events include the Children's Earth Day celebration, which will take place this Thursday in our library at 4 p.m. in the Children's Room, a native garden tour this coming weekend, April 21st and 22nd, the Town Arbor Day celebration, Friday, April 27th at 10 a.m. at Live Oak Manor Park, and an electronic waste recycling event at Calvary Church on Saturday, April 28th. Each Sunday in April, a booth is set up at the farmers market to provide community education on a variety of sustainability topics such as gardening, recycling, and energy efficiency. Throughout the month of April, participating cafes in town are offering a discount to patrons that bring their own mug when they purchase a beverage. There are many, many other activities scheduled throughout the month of April, and you can learn more about those at www.losgatosca.gov. Keep Los Gatos Beautiful, and there are handouts at the back of the room, outside of the room, if you wish to obtain additional information in hard copy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. I do believe the manager had a clarification before we get too far into that.
Correct. Mayor, members of the council, 2 minor administrative corrections. First, on item 2, attachment 2.7 is the Gemini Court benefit zone. The staff report and the improvement description identified that as district number 2. However, the map says district number 1. It's a minor administrative change on that we would incorporate in your action. And then on item 4, the First Amendment to the agreement, Exhibit A, cites a wrong date under Section A. It says December 21st, 2012. The council doesn't pre-authorize agreements. That date should actually be December 21st, 2010. I did want to clarify for the council, there's nothing in this proposed action that changes your prior deadline, that all improvements related to this project must be completed by the end of December 2012. And that does not change in your action tonight.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, does any member of the council wish to pull a consent item? Seeing none, any members of the public wish to pull a consent item? Sir. Okay, could you fill out a card for us as well? So item 4 is pulled, and we will hear that after tonight's public hearings. Do I have a motion on the remainder of the consent agenda? Councilmember Leonardis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the consent calendar exclusive of item 4 with the corrections on item 2 as noted by the town manager.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that takes us on to public hearings. Item number 7. I'm sorry, I guess I should do verbal communications first since I haven't read that yet. Next is verbal communications. It's 3 minutes for anybody to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda. Thank you, Ms. McNutt. I don't have any speaker cards, but if somebody wants to come forward and speak, you can fill out the speaker card afterwards. Anybody wish to speak on verbal? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to public hearings and agenda item number 7, which is adopting the resolution approving the comprehensive fee schedule for fiscal year 2012 and 13. To continue certain department fees, rates, and charges, and increase certain fees, rates, and charges for the fiscal year 2012 and 2013. Jenny Hariyama, Finance and Budget Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I was sure they were all here to hear my presentation on fees, but I am mistaken. So I will make this brief tonight. As you know, before you is the 1213 comprehensive user fee. And fees are established by the town to recover the cost of providing services. And in attachment 1 are a list of fees that we are proposing to be adjusted by CPI, which is 2.7 for 2011. This is an annual adjustment that is called for in the comprehensive user fee schedule. And many of these fees will be adjusted throughout the year. The fees that are before you tonight are primarily development fees, engineering fees, some public safety fees. Primarily, if there are not fees that are not included in there, it is typically because they've either been adjusted already, they are either at cost recovery levels, or there is sensitivity to increasing those fees. For example, library fines, we like to try to keep those at a nominal level. Tonight, we'll be discussing just really briefly that we will be presenting additional fee adjustments as a part of the budget hearing, which is a different process this year. Majority of those will be development-related fees, and primarily will be under probably about 10%. There may be some that might be slightly higher, but we'll be discussing those in further detail at the May public hearing on May 21st. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Hariyama. Any questions? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I'll open the hearing if anybody wishes to speak. I have no speaker cards, however. Seeing nobody running to the microphone, I'll close the public hearing and look to the council for discussion or a motion. Councilmember Brzezinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move to adopt the resolution approving the comprehensive fee schedule for fiscal year 2012-13 to continue certain department fees, rates, and charges, and increase certain fees, rates, and charges so noted in attachment 1.
It's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Leonardis.
Thank you. I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we'll go back to our pulled consent item, which is item number 4. This is 15928 Union Avenue improvement, adopting a resolution approving the amended contract for the improvement of 15928 Union Avenue and modification to condition number 47 of the approved application M-08-13. Architecture and Site Applications S-08-30, S-09-33, and S-09-34, and authorizing the town manager to execute an amended contract for the improvement of 15928 Union, agreement number 10-216, and project conditions approval for subdivision application M-08-13, Architecture and Site Applications S-08-30, S-09-33, and 34. This was pulled, I believe, by Mr. Mangano. I'll let you come forward first if you'd like, sir. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, I went down to the Planning Commission this morning, Planning Department and Park and Recreations. And unfortunately, at both places, I wasn't able to get any staff information. And I was told there was going to be some desk items tonight, but there's no desk items. So bear with me a little bit. And the correction, as I read the amendment, I don't understand it to be saying that it had to be done on 2012, December 21st. I read it that it was a staged agreement. Now, what's involved here are things that we were very concerned about in our long discussions with everybody prior to the approval of this. And we were assured that this work was going to be done before occupancy of Lot 1 and 2. It's disappointing now that we're now changing that. And, you know, when staff and multiple departments tell us something that's going to happen, it should happen. Now, what little research we were able to do today is the justification is this, as I understand, is that PG&E has a long lead item on getting this stuff moved. Well, as of today, PG&E doesn't even have a signed contract from the developer to do the work. The developer has not done anything for 3 weeks on getting the time going. So I don't understand why we could say, let's move all these dates based on a long lead item when it's the developer who hasn't even made an agreement with PG&E. So what I would propose is that you modify this agreement saying that you will give him occupancy for these other 2 houses. In addition, he needs to sign with PG&E a commitment to do it. Why give him a 6-month window? I mean, we were told, and this 6-month window can become even longer because we know Lot 1 hasn't even been submitted yet. So I just think that this agreement is too open-ended. They could come in and say, gee, this takes longer than 2 years. I think there should be a signed agreement between PG&E and the developer, and then you can give him the occupancy permit to allow him to do this other open window extension. I don't think it's fair. It was important to the neighborhood that this be done.
Thank you, Mr. Mangano. Any questions? Thank you. Next is, or does staff want to offer any clarifications?
Well, I can give you about a 2-minute presentation if you think that would help things along. I think I'd probably want to do that before Mr. Jeans or the applicant chooses to speak. So, Mr. Mangano is certainly correct that the project does have a long history, and there is a sensitivity to the neighborhood concerns. The project goes way back to 2008. I think many of you know when it was originally proposed as a 4-lot subdivision. But since the approval in 2010 as a 3-lot subdivision, the contract between the developer and the town was in fact signed in December 2010, as mentioned by the town manager under the consent items. And so under that contract, all of the public improvements are to be completed within a 2-year window. So essentially, the developer is on the clock to complete all improvements by December 2012. The differences between the agreement in place now and the proposed changes have to do with the linkages between the certificates of occupancy and the public improvements. Under the original agreement, the improvements on Panorama Way were to be completed prior to the first certificate of occupancy being issued, and the improvements on Union Avenue were to be completed prior to the second. And what's changed since then is that there's this utility pole issue that has to do with PG&E. And as we all know from even some of our own projects, that PG&E does have some resource and scheduling concerns that often lead to longer lead times. So while we're not proposing any changes to the ultimate end date of this contract, it would still remain as December 2012. But what would change is the linkages between the public improvements and the occupancy. So under the proposed changes, the first 2, the public improvements on the Panorama Way side would have to be accepted by the town, and they have been, prior to issuing certificates of occupancy for units 1 and 2, which are essentially the 2 Panorama Way units. And the public improvements on Union Avenue, including the removal of the utility pole, would need to be fully completed, including the widening of the street, prior to the 3rd certificate of occupancy being issued. That does change the linkages, of course, as Mr. Mangano does suggest, but it does not change the ultimate end date of the contract, which remains as December 2012.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McNutt?
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anywhere in our paperwork that we have here tonight that references that December 31, 2012 date, or is that in the original contract and not here?
That was in the original contract, and so I suppose that we could have been more explicit to put that in the council report before you this evening, but it was not proposed as a change, so we did not call it out specifically. But I'm referencing it in the original contract that was signed between the town and the developer.
And Mayor.
And just for clarification, since this appears to be an issue, is depending on the council's desire tonight, the First Amendment to the agreement, Exhibit A, could be modified to reiterate that requirement that all improvements must be completed by December 21st, 2012.
Okay. And may I have another question?
Please.
And so what happens if they are not?
Essentially, it would be the same process as if they had not completed the other improvements. There is a bonding issue that I think I would turn to Mr. Rohani if we need to get into the more details. Excuse me, if you would like to hear more details on. That really doesn't change under either process. Under the current contract, there are a number of contingency stipulations for what happens if the improvements are not done on time, and those would remain the same. If you'd like more detail, I can call Kevin to come on up.
I know.
It's a non-office.
Takes a non-engineer.
Yes, Councilmember McNutt. The town is holding $113,000 bonds for this project from a developer. This is for the improvements they're supposed to do and they've done on Panorama and Union Avenue. In no way, shape, or form we're releasing those bonds. Those will be held. None of the conditions that we've talked about and is on tonight's agenda is going to change that. So we will be holding the bonds until the project's completely completed. Basically, they have completed their improvements on Panorama Way. What is remaining is the work on Union and basically roadway widening, curb gutter, sidewalk improvements, and underground utilities to the single house that's facing Union.
And with any bonded project, if the work is not completed, we could then pursue with the bonded company to have the work completed using those funds.
Does that answer
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Vice Mayor Spector.
Thank you. Following up on that question, so if the 2 remaining contingencies were not completed by the developer by, I think you said December 21st, 2012, then would the town move in with the bonding monies to do that work themselves? And if so, when?
That would be at the discretion of the town and the council to use the bonds basically to complete the improvements. And that could be done, it could start as soon as December 21st comes, and if the improvements have not been done, then the town can take action to use the bonds to do the improvements. We would have to secure services of a contractor, go through a process. I'm sure we'll work with our staff, our colleagues, and pursue that. But yes, that would be at the discretion of the town to completely make the improvements.
Go ahead.
And so if it's at the discretion of the town, and you were sort of indicating the council, does that mean that this project, if the contingencies were not removed, would come back to us to make that determination?
At that point, it would, for probably a couple of reasons, because we'd have a contract that had not been fully executed, which we would need to revisit with the council, and also for the award of the work, which we would need to come back for you to approve the design and specs and award over $50,000. So you'd have a couple looks at it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, the next card I had, thank you for your indulgence, is Orr Busing.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff. First, I'd like to say that we in the neighborhood and Panorama and Union Avenue are looking forward to having completion of this development. It certainly, we expect it will enhance the neighborhood from the vacant lot and what we had for the prior years. Mr. Grant has been very fortunate to have very few days of rain delay, and the project is moving right along. With that said, I have a concern that town staff might go to the extent of developing a resolution which would amend the contract under manufactured pretenses. If the developer had requested the PG&E pole removal and the underground electrical work could have been completed over a year ago. The request for this PG&E work was only made in the past few months. In a conversation with PG&E staff this afternoon, a contract dated March 27, 2012 was mailed to Jeff Grant, and PG&E had not received a signed contract to date. PG&E staff said they are prepared to do the necessary work per the conditions of their contract. The town engineering department has had a copy of this estimate and contract in their files. The delay may be self-imposed by the developer due to financial reasons and not because PG&E is unable to perform. It costs quite a bit of money up front for PG&E to do this work. The town staff is asking the council to support this resolution. This may establish a precedent for other developers who find themselves with financial difficulties to ask for similar contract modifications and not have to perform to the original contract agreements with the town. In addition, both the planning department and the engineering department staff members have stated to the neighborhood residents at these council meetings and planning commission meetings from the onset of this process that the street work and all the site work would need to be completed before the town would sign off for certificates of occupancy for Panorama Way lots 2 and 3. This new resolution reverses these commitments and diminishes the element of trust between the Los Gatos departments and the neighborhood residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Busing? Seeing none, the next card I have is Tony Jeans.
Tony Jeans, representing the applicant. Mr. Mayor, council members. I would like to clarify one point first of all, and that is what happens if it potentially goes beyond 2012 December. There is a time extension clause in the original contract, and I'm reading from it. I can give it to you. It says, if performance of this agreement should be delayed without the fault of the subdivider, the time for the construction of the same may be extended by the town engineer for such period of time as is reasonable based on the delay. So there is one provision. We don't know, we don't expect that, but we hope to have everything done by the end of December. Let's look at what is being requested here and look at the rationale. When Mr. Grant started the project, no one knew him. He hadn't done any work, and he was asking for a lot from the town. And the town said, then you've got to do all your improvements because we don't want you walking away in the middle of the project and leaving an incomplete set of work for the town to complete, even if we have to pull your bond. He's already done half the work. He's done 2 of the lots, and he's shown that by performance that he is listening to the town and doing the work necessary. Let's look at this in detail. You have really 2 projects. You have a Panorama project and you have a Union project. The Panorama project is almost complete, and hopefully the certificates of occupancy will be forthcoming and Mr. Grant will be able to move forward. To do the work on the front, and I'm submitting plans because Mr. Grant has commissioned me to do plans for a single-story home at the front. We'll be submitting plans for the Union lot. The Union lot has very specific things that have to happen, and based on that lot being approved in a particular way or a different way, that may change that PG&E poll. So we cannot finalize that until we know for sure that we're heading in the right direction. Now, after technical review, we'll get some feedback from the staff and we'll have a better idea. But even beyond that, it still might require changes. So I don't even know, given where we are, that we really could have gone ahead and moved the PG&E poll up front. I think, and what we were requesting was that we do the improvements relating to the PG&E poll prior to the building permit being issued, which means as soon as you've approved it, before we pull a permit, we move the PG&E poll. Now, we can time that with PG&E to make that happen. Mr. Grant has to write a $73,000 check and then wait a certain period of time to have it happen, but that is what it is. The other thing that has to happen on that lot is a lot of heavy grading equipment has to go in and out. Concrete trucks have to go in and out. And certainly if it were my sidewalk, and it is partly mine because I live in the town of Los Gatos, I would not want the concrete trucks and the grading equipment smashing up the sidewalk, getting in and out of that property during the early stages of the project. So I'd like to see the grading done, the concrete work done, the foundation. Then you can widen the street, make the curb front look good before the winter comes, within the time frame that we have, I hope, depending on how long the approval process is with neighbor input, and get everything done. And the town gets a good sidewalk, good curbs, not smashed ones that get destroyed by the equipment going in and out. I think it's the right decision. There's no fiscal impact to the town, and I urge you to approve it. I am not convinced that the neighbors are looking at this the right way. Yes, they'd like to see closure, but also I would think that they want to see a nice product, not a cracked sidewalk and broken broken curbs and gutter. So it's the right resolution here.
Questions for Mr. Jeans? Seeing none, thank you. Question, Mr. Larson.
Following up on the town attorney's suggestion that you could add the December date to this for the exception clause for a continuance or the extension agreement, staff could also be directed whether or not to bring that forward to council or to do it on their own discretion. So that would just be a direction to staff, if you so chose, to control that piece of the open-ended nature of the agreement.
Vice Mayor Spector.
Thank you. When you say give the council the option of having it brought before it, what is the it that would be? Are you talking about being brought back to us?
Well, what we didn't reference earlier was the second clause that was just read by Mr. Jeans, where if there's extraordinary circumstances where they can't meet the December 21st, 2012 date, rather than just the town exercising the bonds, the town would have discretion to extend that date as reasonable depending on circumstances. That is something that's typically approved in these agreements that is delegated to staff. The council could always direct that that decision be brought back to council before any extension was granted.
Go ahead.
Thanks again. So you're talking about right now the determination as to whether or not to extend extend the date or utilize the bonds would be at staff's discretion?
Right now, if the work was not completed on December 12th, staff would have discretion to pursue a bond remedy or to meet with the builder in any project, not just this case, to talk about what caused the delays and what are the remedies to the delay, and we have discretion to extend beyond that December 21st date. The council could specify, staff not make that decision, bring it back to council before proceeding, just by direction to me as your staff.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? I actually have one. Mr. Jeans referenced the trucks that might be going across the sidewalk and curb and that kind of thing. Just make sure I'm clear. If we held them to the December 21st date, and it was in, and then they started construction and the trucks damaged the sidewalk and such, would we not require that to be replaced in proper condition before we would ever issue an occupancy permit?
We certainly would. But typically what happens is that you don't install those type of improvements until you've done that. But that would be one way around it, is that it could be constructed prior, and then if it were to sustain damage, it would need to be replaced. I would not suggest that course of action because it just could result in additional work, but that's not atypical.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? All right. I have no other cards, so I'm closing the public hearing, and I'll look to council for further discussion or a motion. Councilmember Przinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clarification of the attorney. You referenced in Exhibit A, the First Amendment to Agreement, that we could insert a third amendment, I would assume, that indicated that the December 21/12 date would be included in this document. Is that correct?
That's correct. It would still be in force and effect under since we hadn't modified it, but we explicitly could add to the amendment a third term that requires all improvements to be completed by December 21st, 2012.
All right. So with that in mind, how does this relate to our discussion and the extension that is possible in, as Mr. Jeans noted, in the agreement?
So you could also add a fourth term, and we can add that into the amendment, whereby it modifies the term in the existing contract that instead of the discretion being with the town staff and town engineer, that that the discretion for any extensions past December 21st, 2012 would be solely at the council's discretion and not staff's.
And then one more clarification. Our standard is that is the purview of the staff in standard applications.
In most cases like this, that is a staff discretion. I could add one clarifying comment to the attorney. That remains in the original agreement that you're amending, that discretion to staff. So if you wanted to change that discretion to staff, it would either have to be by an additional amendment that you approve tonight, or simply by a direction to your employee not to exercise that discretion without returning to you. So you can do that either way, or you can leave it the way it is, where the discretion remains with staff, as is typically the case in the underlying base agreement.
I guess the question I have is, why would we, in this particular case, change what's our standard policy that we would use in every other case?
Giving the council options, given concerns raised.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions of staff or a motion? Councilmember Przinski.
All right. I'll make a motion to now. First, there are two actions we're asked to accomplish tonight. One is to adopt, and the other is to authorize. Can this be done in a single motion, or need they be bifurcated? And that's the question to the attorney.
It could be done in a single motion.
All right. Then I'm going to make a motion to adopt the resolution as so noted with the amendment about the December 12 December 21, 12 date, but inclusive of the language that is currently in our agreement regarding the unforeseen circumstances, shall we say, that might occur. I am not inclined to, as part of this motion, insert the council as the body to determine at that point in time, since that is not our standard, and also to authorize the manager to execute the amended contract. That's the motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I don't.
I'll second.
Okay. Second. Discussion. Vice Mayor Spector.
Thank you. A couple of things. First of all, I want to clarify that the motion does include a condition that all improvements will be completed by December 21st, 2012.
I made the motion, and that was, I think, what I said.
Okay. Then the question of staff is, do we have an intermediary position here, thing that we can do, which is, since this has been a sensitive project that has gone on for many years, that to have staff report back to council what happened with this application and the conditions of approval on or before December 21st, 2012?
Staff, given the sensitive community and the extensive council discussion, we will certainly do that with or without direction. We can report back on the status as of December 21st. And even if there is no change to the underlying extension clause in the agreement, if there were issues that staff identified that came forward that did cause a delay that we thought warranted council discussion on our own discretion, we could bring those to you for consideration prior to any action.
Thank you.
As the maker of the motion, I'd like to include that, therefore, as a friendly amendment, so to speak, that part of this motion is to have a revisiting of this to the council prior to that date, the December 21, 12 date.
Is that acceptable to the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I have no other items on our agenda this evening, and we are adjourned.